My name is Sinan. I'm Chief Experience Officer at ICVR. I basically handle the outside world. And here we have incredible panelists. Let's start with Mr. Canning.
Oh boy, pressure's on. Hey everybody, John Canning. I work with AMD. My responsibilities are looking after some of our partners, principally Blackmagic, Adobe, trying to help them run bigger, better, faster, stronger. And delighted to be here today.
Thank you, everybody. This is great to be here. My name is Juan Nader. I am the Director of Virtual Production and On-Set Technology at Technicolor. We're running the new virtual production division that Technicolor has, so it's verticals across all the 4 different companies: MPC, The Mill, Makers Animation, and Technicolor Games, and how virtual production can actually help them grow.
Hi guys, my name is Henrique Kobylko. I know it's pretty complicated, that's why I go by Koby. So I'm the director of OSVP, so On-Set Virtual Production, for Fuse Technical Group, not to be confused with lots of other fuses. But basically, our company is a full production house. We have lots of different areas in the company: concert touring, media servers, lighting, camera systems, and we do film and TV. Within film and TV, we have our virtual production department. We engineer and build LED stages from the ground up, server rooms, LED walls, and we run shows as well. So our 2 biggest clients are Industrial Light and Magic and Amazon. So Mandalorian stage, all of the stages after for ILM, Amazon stage, we're really close. And that's it, yeah, sorry.
So in case you can't tell, everybody's trying to say they're so cool and it's a great panel. And that's the whole point, actually. All right, so really what we want to do today is, I don't want to generalize this, but probably you've been into a lot of virtual production talks the past 3 years, not necessarily today. And so we wanted to bring it a little bit back and kind of take 10,000 feet view first, and then dig deeper into specific pain points, and then see where these gentlemen think it's going to go in the next few years. So starting with John, before even Mandalorian and all the PR buzz and in-camera VFX and LED walls, before AMD for you, Digital Domain. And with Digital Domain, you guys have always been on the bleeding edge of trying to do crazy, insane things, and you've done different forms of virtual production, right? Well, whether it's in mocap, whether it's digital humans, and other stuff. Where did it start for you? How did you get involved in this?
Oh, geez. It's like turn back the Wayback Machine. Yeah, getting involved in this particular aspect of it, or is it in-camera VFX, or I got involved in virtual production when we were talking about just remote access to production. Looking at a lot of the technologies and tools that we've iterated on, being in the visual effects business and before that the broadcast business, it's just been constantly trying to leverage these tools to make more efficient productions. A lot of us have been involved in this business where LEDs are just the newest manifestation of back projection, or some way to surround a scene, and it introduced a new set of problems and opportunities. But we've been wrapping things around productions for a very long time. And I think that's the interesting thing to think about is that now we've introduced a new set of tools. How are we going to use those tools? How are we going to make our productions, at the end of the day, as a producer, I still had to pay for things, and we still get into the cost aspect of that. And I think that's, we were chatting about this last night, and somebody just threw out it'll save you 40%. Well, it doesn't save you 40% day one. And introducing these new things. So the wave that we've been going through of adding LED stages and trying out things and working with real-time engines, it has been a constant learning process that is just the new set of tools that we have to deal with.
Makes total sense. I couldn't agree more. I mean, you guys have kind of started somehow running into each other in the same project, but I'm going to leave it to you. Like, how did you guys get involved into, what was the starting point for you when it comes to virtual production?
You can go first.
You have the same story, kind of.
I think you're referring to Mandalorian, right? So
That's the other M word.
Yeah. There's Metaverse and there's Mandalorian. We're talking about Mandalorian.
So the thing with virtual production is the before Mandalorian and then the after Mandalorian. Virtual production with Mandalorian was like the buzzword, and everybody was curious about it. How did they do it, right? So with Mandalorian, I think a lot of things changed in terms of the terminology, including the volume, right? Everybody talks about the volume, but before that, where did that come from? And then what were we doing before Mandalorian, where there were no LED screens, right? So virtual production before that was just camera tracking, essentially. And then if you had camera tracking, then could you have people that you could track when using Motion Builder and then just visualizing that very roughly. And that was for us virtual production. And then Mandalorian came, and when we got involved, it was the simplest thing. Okay, how do I get information of the position of the camera in real time? And that's it, at least on the motion capture side of things, right? And it was something that we thought, oh, that's really easy. We know all the biomechanical motion of a person. Why can't we just do this with one object, one camera, right? And it turned out, well, it wasn't necessarily, this is now just one camera. You also needed to track it with a bunch of other objects in the scene. So that in itself was a challenge, right? Your camera count ended up increasing. I'm talking about optical motion tracking, right? There's other solutions right now, but this is how we started and how we worked on that production specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that Mando is definitely like a milestone in the industry, and like John was saying, I mean, it's a new technology, a new way of thinking. LED walls are a product that we chose to move forwards, but rear projection has been there for a long time, right? Like from really old days, people have been doing this. So like definitely there is a lot of credit to ILM and Mando and Disney, and they did a lot of heavy lifting, but there was a lot of projects before then as well. So like our team, they worked in very interesting projects with LED volumes before then, which were Murder on the Orient Express, which we wrapped a car in LED and plates.
Wrapped a train car in LEDs.
Yeah, yes, a train car in LED, sorry. And Gravity, X-Men Dark Phoenix, we use LED for advanced lighting. It wasn't in camera, it was green screen. So First Man, it was a big LED wall with plates playback, and we did a whole system in Touch Designer to render everything out, right? So there were a lot of stepping stones until we get to Mando, and Mando is when we get camera tracking and real-time rendering and in-camera VFX all at the same point. So that's why Mando is so important as this milestone. It's because before you didn't really have enough quality. I mean, real-time rendering was great already. Unreal, Unity, like all of these solutions were great, but they were not ready to be rendered in camera. So that's when we start moving towards, and then after that, a lot of people rolled their sleeves and started working really, really hard, and we are miles beyond where we were. There's still a lot of challenges, as we all know, but we are in a way better spot than what we were, 4 years ago? That was Mando. Yeah.
So that actually brings us to the next point, which is, it seems like what the three of you are saying is that at different points you guys started into doing different methods of virtual production early to mid 2010s, with the early phases of it until what we have today, which is considered very advanced. I guess looking at lessons learned, right, from building as you go and nothing working and everything's breaking on set to today. What are the lessons learned and where are we today?
Be careful where you invest your capital. I think the swell of stages to be built, the sort of land rush of, oh my God, we got to build a stage and add an LED wall, or we're a company that has LED walls and we want to do something with them in, 20 and 21. Now how many of those stages are getting utilized, or people are realize their dot pitch isn't what it needs to be? Where is the proper capital investment? And I think also understanding the human capital aspect of who's running these things, what talent do you have to have on staff? Do you have to have them on staff? I think is the thing that people now are going through. And looking at, okay, well, what's the next phase of this to sustain, to use? We're going into a very interesting time that this town is going to go through again, where, great, you got a very expensive stage. It's not operating right now. Whoops.
Yeah.
Straight on.
I mean, I will echo what John's saying. I think staffing is a big thing. Everybody is really going for it and studying embryo and other things that we need. We need on sets, we need engineers, we need artists, we need data wranglers, we need people that speak the language of production. We're borrowing all of these people from different industries right now and training them. We always talk about this person that it's the VP soup. I end up staffing this position on lots of our shoots because I can't get a VP soup, right? And that person is the unicorn that can talk to production and that can link arms with director and DP, but can go and translate all of those requests to the volume control area. How do you understand all of these different things, And you only get this by experience, by actually doing a shoot. So, we keep trying to bring, these junior artists to our shoots as much as we can to let people gain this experience. And, the main thing is that we all only succeed when we work together in tandem and when you surround yourself with good people and the people that you like working with, because being on set is extremely stressful, as we all know, especially on a VP soup. What we do is not easy. And the other challenge that I would say is not only on the education end of staffing the stages, but educating production on this new workflow and how everything works. Many times we get to set and production still haven't wrapped their heads around the type of shoot that we're doing.
I'm gonna get back on this before we get to you on,
Yeah.
but earlier you guys were describing different set of challenges from 6-7 years ago, and today you're still saying being a VP soup on set is not easy and it's difficult. Are you still facing the same difficulties, or is that new set of challenges that you're facing today?
I think that it's a little bit of both. I think there is a lot of things that haven't really changed since then to now. There's still things that seem the exact same as they were 5 years ago.
Like what?
Like some camera tracking protocols, the difficulty of translating metadata, lots of the things that Igor had mentioned before, MoCo is, whenever a shoot has MoCo, is super complicated, right? There's all of these things that it's hard to make it move faster, but we're all trying. I mean, we're all in different work groups together trying to achieve that. It's just, it's the reality of production, It's tough, and there's a lot that goes on a day-to-day on the shoots, and you don't have enough time. So, yeah, things
Juan,
got better, but
Juan, you have a different perspective here than all of us, right? You come from massive studio. You guys run across the board between animation, live action, VFX, right? And in-camera VFX now. So both legacy and real time. What has changed from, again, the examples you brought up earlier, like, well, we were happy with just camera tracking, and now? What changed? What are some of the important lessons you guys have learned, and what are some of the challenges you're facing now?
In terms of the challenges, I'd probably say there's four main things. There's infrastructure challenges, then there is talent shortage challenges, then there is probably, I say, pipeline challenges, like we were hearing before, and then on top of that, there's leadership challenges, because Koby mentions that a lot of it is, we're trying to bring junior artists or people who are starting their careers and get them involved in all this. But at the same time, I think that we need that old school leadership, somebody who's actually wanting to get these new things into their pipeline. So someone who's bold enough to invest time, obviously resources, into their pipelines. Because one of the biggest problems with VFX is that they don't change their pipelines. They're so static. And it's the same pipeline. Maybe they just implemented a new format, right? Let's say USD. How many old pipelines have actually shifted to using USD? Maybe USD doesn't provide all the tools that they need, but at the same time, how many actually have tried to implement USD in their pipelines, right?
Well, I think it's, let's be honest. Show me a visual effects company that has time, money, and personnel to just go ahead and keep up with what's going on while they're also in the pace of trying to do projects, right? It's a just-in-time business. God help us, right? Like, if there is an extra body standing around not doing something, they get fired. They're like, oh, we don't need you right now, but we're going to call you in about 3 weeks when we ramp up for the next production. Yeah. Like, most of our businesses, the first department that gets whacked when, hey, there's a writer's strike. Oh, geez. That is the IT department. Are you guys making money? No. Yeah. And I think that's the challenge in a lot of our businesses. We're flying the plane and building it and designing it. It's that old adage, and I think that's where we see a lot of this challenge. You're not wrong. Is we need that realization to do that, but then somebody looks around and says, where's the budget or the personnel that I'm going to take off the existing production to go work on that next pipeline?
yeah.
And I think that's the problem, actually, because I think that everything gets based on a production, and I don't think we can continue to do that. Not everything is, oh, this production needs it, so we need to invest money and then just build it into the production. We can't do that, right? And
it's archived after the production.
And we're not going to tell anybody that we're basically building the new pipeline off the production that you just hired us to do.
And then the problem is that pipeline gets dissolved because all of the guys that were working there are now working at different studios. So you don't even get the pipeline anymore.
So what you're saying is this has to be, or an ideal world, has to be on a studio level, a studio infrastructure, and then productions do use that studio infrastructure and not just production base that gets thrown away after the production is done. Amen. I hope that happens.
It becomes a conversation too in between all of these studios, right? To establish workflows that will work across the board. It's exactly what Igor was saying about the VAD pipeline, right? Like, we all need to integrate. Like, the way that I see it, like, the groups that can stick together, they usually are the ones that are the innovators and go for it and take it upon themselves to do it and to make a change. And that's great, but it just doesn't happen fast enough unless there is a dedicated R&D group, right? So that would be the point of the big studios coming in and saying, let me focus on a big R&D group, and let's get all of these R&D groups from these studios talking to each other.
Well, look, credit to you guys ICVR. I mean, you guys are being R&D for productions, right? And to some degree, I think that's the way it has to happen in some cases, because your organization, other companies like yourselves who are focused on innovation, potentially out of other industries, looking at that problem and then saying, how do I bring this in and deploy it? Interoperability in various levels. You know, we talk about USD, we talk about some of the standards, looking at the different SMPTE standards. We have to lean more into that to say, yeah, how are we able to move assets back and forth through the organizations? You know, as we look at 3D methods coming online, what is the interoperability standards of those things? You know, standards and metadata are the most boring topic that I think, you know, here we are, MESA hits.
We have calls
like
about
boring,
it. Yeah.
We like boring, and you know, but it's the groundwork that we have to keep focusing on.
So what I'm hearing is that you guys are all circling, and same thing with Igor earlier, there's a lot of talks towards standards, right? So eventually what you guys are hoping for is getting to some sort of standards. Now, obviously, there's different parts. There's color, assets, metadata, camera, you know, go on and on and on.
And even before standards, because standards could be a pain in the tuchus. I mean, you know, they take a lot of years. They're hard to slog through. But industry starts to get together and come up with ways of interoping and then look at how you make those standards. But at first getting, you know, the effort together to say, okay, we're going to have to play in the same sandbox, so how does that start? And I think that's your step along the way. Yeah, standards are beautiful things down the road, but don't happen overnight.
Yeah, and I know you guys are involved at certain capacities, certain different workshops, trying to come up with, again, not necessarily standards, but at least some sort of an agreement of a workflow that could function to a certain extent across studios. So thanks to you all for doing that. Just makes our life easier. Okay, so the next phase of this, we've been talking so far about specifically film and TV, and to be honest, the bigger budget ones, right? Because if we're talking about in camera VFX specifically, we know that this is not accessible to the majority of productions, first and foremost due to cost. Moving forward, do you guys see a path for scalability, not only for the 1% of productions to more, but also not only necessarily for film and TV only, but beyond that?
Yeah, I mean, like on our end, we are working as hard as we can to democratize the technology and bring the price point down as much as we can. And we work together with productions and we figure out how to make it work for them. So yes, like that's the whole reason why like we now have a car process stage in-house and we have our stage in-house and we can do things a little bit differently than just really, really big scale things, right? And that's why we can bring screens to somebody and just say, okay, yeah, do this for 2 weeks on a production that is already shooting, that you already have your actors schedule. We'll build it for you, a pop-up, and you can shoot. So we're trying to get there on this end. Now, for like larger vision, I think, you know, it's more than film and TV for sure. I mean, commercial work it's shooting a lot in VP. There's a lot of other things, but obviously when you're building an asset for virtual production, for in-camera VFX, you're building a real-time asset. So you're building that for the future, right? That asset is going to be able to live in a game setting, in a VR world. The future is multimedia. You can translate it into many different scenarios. So it's a stepping stone, you know, but for a way bigger future, I think.
What about you, John? What do you think, John?
I think the interesting thing is the access to tools, right, and technology. I mean, I love what Matt Workman does. Corey Strasberg and what he's been able to do as a one-man wrecking crew.
Yep.
You look at the output. Corey's challenged by he wants to do everything himself, or he'd have faster output, but a high-quality product. So you start seeing that, and you're like, the accessibility of the tool sets doesn't have to just generally be that big budgets. Now, you're going to have a big LED wall. You want to go big, you got cost. But there are ways to compensate for that. I mean, we haven't even, that perpetual elephant in the room is, you can do virtual production without a real-time engine. You don't have to run Unreal on a stage depending on what you're trying to shoot. But almost from day one, the virtual production conversation was, it's a real-time engine and all. Not necessarily. And some of those costs that people are like, I have to invest in what? What are you shooting? Do you get scrappy with what you're shooting? And I think that's where, if you got the limited budget, you get creative and you start talking to people about how to still achieve what you're trying to do.
And that, again, totally agree with you on that. There's plates, there's HDRIs, there's a bunch of other things that you can do.
A little bit of parallax will go a long ways.
With also, you can do a lot of things with the new iPhone and facial tracking and Move AI. And
Vive, HTC, blue screens, all of that, different indie stuff. Also, it's about the creative intent, right? It's not about the technology. We all decided to come into this industry because we love it art, not because we love it product. So when we talk about this, okay, we love product too, but when we talk about this, I always love talking about people and arts and creative intent, and not necessarily how do you do it? Does it has to be LED stage? Does it not?
That's why you barely slept this weekend. All right, Juan, again, you have a different perspective here, right? You guys, you're the elephant in the room when it comes to VFX houses, right? What's your perspective on that?
A well-dressed elephant.
I mean,
yeah, very well dressed.
Look, for us, is about the type of project, right? We always think about is there a reason why you should be using virtual production, or you just saw it and then thought, oh, this is sexy, it's good advertising, and for us, if it's good advertising, great, because we can then transfer those assets to the mill and we'll do everything in-house, right? But more than that is more, okay, are you using the right tools for this production? What is your story and what do you want to convey? That's mainly what we focus on. I mean, all of this past experience that we've shared, right? We've been trying everywhere you go to a studio. Obviously, there's the business side and also there's the creative side, right? You need to have a balance in those two worlds. And then so for us at Technicolor, with all these 4 different companies, what we try to do is, okay, well, let's try to at least segment it so that, advertisement can actually go and then they shoot in a very specific way. I mean, you guys have seen it. If it's a car commercial, they probably have 3 days and not a lot of prep. Right, and the same for us on the MPC side. Well, those assets need to be really well thought out, and a lot of the time you go through many iterations that actually take 16, more than 20 weeks, right? So for us, what we try to do is, okay, well, what is the type of content that you're trying to create, and then what do you actually need to do or to achieve that creative vision? And that's what's important for us. And if you have something, access is key, right? Obviously, Unreal is free, but also you need to know exactly who your crew is going to be. Like John was saying, how many people do you need in a brain bar, right? Like how many people do you actually need to run this? Well, sometimes you could do it with just one person, right? Because that person actually knows what to do and what to get out of it. If you don't know what you need to get out of it to actually tell a story you want to tell, then that's a different conversation that you need to have.
So all goes in the prep and figuring out what you want and what's the best solution. Okay, Well, we're up against time. Wish we had more time. We can go probably for an hour. But thank you very much. Really appreciate you. Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate you.